What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a few sell high players after week 4 of the NFL season. So just guys that I think maybe peaked in week 4. I don't think their production's sustainable, and I think you'd be better off, moving off these dudes sooner rather than later. If you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button, subscribe. Any questions, drop them down below. But looking at my first sell high player here, it is going to be Michael Pittman. And this seems like a pretty obvious spot here to pivot off of Michael Pittman. He had been a brutal fantasy option through the first 3 weeks. Week 1, 4 receptions for 31 yards. Week 2, 3 for 21. Week 3, 4 for 36. He pretty much seemed unplayable heading into week 4. He hadn't hit 40 receiving yards in a game. He had yet to hit 8 PPR points. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the first big game Pittman has this season is with Richardson getting knocked out of the game early on and Joe Flacco stepping in. So he was targeted 9 times, caught 6 of them for 113 yards. And I could definitely make an argument, and I believe this, that with Joe Flacco at quarterback, I think Pittman would be a locked-in top 24 play. We saw it last year when Flacco took over for the Browns as the quarterback. David Njoku was all of a sudden the tight end 1. Amari Cooper was a very solid fantasy play. But as of right now, it does not look like Anthony Richardson is expected to miss an extended period of time. And so for Michael Pittman here, I feel like he's going to go back to that production we saw early on in the season. This is not a Michael Pittman issue. It's not him being bad as a player. It's not him being way worse than he was last year. It's just an issue with the fit at the quarterback position. And I just struggle to see Michael Pittman being a fantasy wide receiver 2 with Richardson at quarterback. So some of the players I'd be looking to target if you're trying to pivot off Michael Pittman, I like T. Higgins as a buy low. Brian Thomas Jr. is someone who I've really liked. I know he's coming off a big game, but maybe someone likes Pittman as a more proven option. I like Rashid Shaheed, also like Xavier Worthy, but not quite sure you're going to be able to pull that off with the Rashee Rice injury. But those are just 4 names I'd throw out. I'd also be willing to tier up at wide receiver or just pivot to an entirely different position. But Michael Pittman, I know he had the big game. You've probably been holding out for it if you still have him. If you can sell him for like wide receiver 2, even like high-end wide receiver 3, I would at this point. Now shifting over to the running back position for a sell high, this is actually a player I talked about last week, and it's going to be Chuba Hubbard. Now I think he is a very urgent sell high. After week 3, you probably could have squeezed out one more nice game, but 4 weeks into the season, with the reports that Jonathan Brooks is in the final stages of his ACL recovery, I really want to be getting off of Chuba Hubbard here. Jonathan Brooks has missed the mandatory 4 games, could end up making his season debut here in week 5. And I'm not saying that Chuba Hubbard's going to completely disappear and that he's going to be a non-factor. Like, he's been very good in back-to-back weeks. 27.9 PPR points in week 3, 22.1 this past week, and he saw really strong usage, 74% snap share, 62% raw participation, and I am expecting a fairly solid split, especially early on, with Brooks kind of working his way back. Could be 50-50. I mean, here in week 5, it could be 60-40, might even be 70-30, in favor of a guy like Chuba Hubbard, as Brooks is kind of working his way back. But I just think later on in the season, as we continue to progress, I have a tough time not seeing Jonathan Brooks operating as the running back 1. They invested in him, round 2 draft capital. I think he's the better pass catcher, which is a big deal considering this Panthers team's probably going to be trailing in games. We've seen, a lot of passing volume going to these running backs, 15 total running back targets over the past 2 weeks. I think that definitely favors Jonathan Brooks. So this is not me saying that like Chuba Hubbard is going to be terrible, but I think if you can sell him as if he's a starting running back rest of season, like he's going to be a locked-in top 24 guy, I definitely would, because I'm very high on Jonathan Brooks. I think he's going to ease his way in, but I think 4, 5, 6 weeks into him being back, looking at the second half of the season, I think this is going to be Jonathan Brooks' backfield, and so I would be trying to pivot off of Chuba Hubbard here. Hopefully someone thinks he's going to be the guy moving forward. Maybe they don't like Jonathan Brooks. Maybe they're just super sold on Chuba Hubbard, but either way, I would be looking to pivot. And then my final sell high here, another running back. It's going to be DeAndre Swift. And after having 3 pretty miserable games, DeAndre Swift finally had a big game. 16 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown. Was also targeted 7 times, caught 7 of them for 72 yards. And this is just a spot where I'm not super sold that like Swift is going to be the locked in running back one rest of season, or that this is even like a great situation for a running back here. Like I know the usage was really strong in this one, 16 carries, 7 targets. That is elite usage, but I don't think one big game completely erases like how rough and ineffective Swift was in the first 3 weeks. He still has the second most rushing yards under expected, the fourth most rushing yards under expected per attempt. And we still have not seen DeAndre Swift kind of working on the goal line here. The first 3 weeks, it was Khalil Herbert. We were looking at like a gross three-headed committee with Swift, Herbert, and then it was Travis Homer the first couple of weeks, Roschon Johnson the past 2 weeks. We were talking about, or we were told that we were going to get an expanded role from Roschon Johnson. He had fine usage, but it seems like he was the guy that took over that goal line work. Roschon's a big dude. I don't think he's going to give up that goal line work to a dude like DeAndre Swift. So for Swift here, like maybe he keeps this role, and he's like a back end RB1 rest of season. I know the receiving volume was here in this one, but this is an offense with DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet at the tight end position. I don't want to bank on receiving usage from DeAndre Swift here. I think the touchdown upside is going to be limited. One solid game on the ground isn't going to sway me here. So some potential targets. I think guys like Brian Robinson Jr., Kenneth Walker, maybe they're unattainable, but you could try to tier up into those guys. Someone I just mentioned when talking about Chuba Hubbard, I prefer Jonathan Brooks at this point. I just think he's the straight up better running back. I think the Panthers offense might honestly be a better situation long term, especially looking at the second half of the season once Jonathan Brooks is fully back. So if you want to tier up at running back, I like that. I think Jonathan Brooks is an interesting trade target here, but I know a lot of people really like DeAndre Swift heading into the season. If they're willing to, buy back in on him after one solid game, I'd be willing to pivot. So those are going to be my 3 sell highs: Michael Pittman, Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift. I will say of the 3, Pittman and Chuba Hubbard are the guys that I think are a lot more urgent, because if Anthony Richardson comes back next week and Michael Pittman has a down game, he's going to be pretty much untradeable at that point. And then for a guy like Chuba Hubbard, if Jonathan Brooks returns in week 5 and say takes 50% of the opportunities, 50% of the snaps, that's going to be a really bad look for Chuba. And the idea that he could be a top 24 guy rest of season is pretty much just going to be gone. So for Swift, after a big game, he's likely going to retain his role. So I don't think it's quite as urgent, but those other 2, I would be trying to pivot off of them. If you guys missed it, I also posted my waiver wire targets and my buy low players earlier on today. So check those out if you haven't seen them already. Any questions, you want to run some trades by me, just drop them down below. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.